A very good afternoon and welcome to Conversation at the SC, held here in conjunction with World Capital Markets Symposium 2018. And today we are indeed very privileged and very honoured to have the Honourable Helen with us at Conversation at SC. So welcome and thank you for coming. And I think the conversation here today, we want to focus on issues in relations to whether equality is a foundation for sustainability. But before that, I think I want to quote a conclusion that was made in a book called Spirit Level by Wilkinson and Pickett, in which it concluded that in a more equal societies, people do, at all levels, do better in all measures of well-being. I.e., in such societies, people are happier, they live a healthier life, they enjoy more social cohesion, less crime, and they state examples such as Sweden and Japan, in that in such equal communities or societies, there is a greater desire for the societies to collectively deal with issues such as environmental pollution and sustainability. So my question to you, do you agree with the fact that equality is a core foundation for sustainability? And if you do agree, what sort of equality are we talking about here? Yeah? Is it equality in just gender? Is it equality in education, equality in opportunities, or equality in social interactions?
I think equality is quite a broad concept, but generally speaking, I think the greater the levels of equality, the more people feel that they can achieve their full potential, and that's liberating. It's good for society, it's good for an economy, because people don't feel constraints. They don't think, oh, I can't do that because I'm a girl, or I can't do that because I'm this or that, or whatever. And you're right, we look to the Scandinavian societies in many ways as a gold standard in societies which have said no one's going to be left behind in this society, and have put in place systems and structures to ensure that that is so. Now, it's not that there are no differences in income. Of course there are. But the objective is to have a life where everyone can live in dignity across the income range, and certainly for women to feel that the world is their oyster too, that they can achieve whatever they set out to be. Now, having established that kind of society, one that is more cohesive, where people feel more solidarity with each other, if you like, perhaps it lends itself to thinking more about what the society needs as a whole in its level of sustainability, working together to achieve that. So, yes, I think fundamentally higher levels of equality are good for developing these inclusive and sustainable societies.
I suppose for Malaysia, I'm just trying perhaps to quote some statistics that was done by, I think, UNICEF in 2016 at the side of, in conjunction with some 20th anniversary of Beijing Platform for Action. And essentially the findings are fairly interesting. In terms of status between men and women, the survey respondents said that 70% said that men's status are higher, and only 22% state that men and women are equal. And in relation to whether Malaysian women are treated equally at workspace, either including salary and promotion, only 9% agree that Malaysian women are treated equally at workplace. And what's interesting is that there was another survey question that basically asked, having more women at positions of influence would basically provide positive impact to the country. And a resounding 75% actually agreed to that. So these are, I suppose, some of the facts showing, I suppose, the perception of equality or inequality in Malaysia. But my question to you is that, what are the key factors inhibiting equality or inhibiting or the causes for inequality? Is it cultural? Is it religion? Is it social interactions?
I don't really think it's religion. I think it's more, this is the way it's been in societies, that men have had these roles and women have had these roles. The women's roles have tended to be more family bound and oriented. In some of the discussions I've been having here around the conference, I've talked about things changing when men change too, when men want to spend more time with family. Whether family means children or whether it means older relatives who also, demand a lot of women's time as well. I have a 96-year-old dad, so I know what it's like to support a very elderly father in many ways. So what we're looking for is for women to be able to combine the family responsibilities and the career responsibilities. Now, men too, I think, could have a better balance in their lives on these things, because often for men, the career's been everything, and there's been an assumption that there will be a woman at home who'll be doing the other things. We need to share this more widely. Women do the vast majority of the world's unpaid work. Men do the majority of the world's paid work. How do we even this up a little bit?
Right. So how do you then integrate gender equality into your policy development for sustainable and equitable development?
So what you can do is have proactive policies which will enable women to make the choice to combine career and family. When I was New Zealand Prime Minister, we were quite preoccupied by the fact that our GDP per capita was lower than, say, the Scandinavian societies. And the more we looked at it, the more the evidence was clear that we needed to get the participation of women in the workforce up. So then we had to look at what were the structural barriers to that. And the structural barriers were affordability of childcare. It was also paid parental leave, that people wanted to be able to combine work and family but have time out with small children, the length of annual holidays. So we addressed all these things. Now, in more recent years, with Prime Minister Shinzo Abe in Japan, he's come to the same conclusion. Japan doesn't have enough workers. It has a huge pool of women who weren't working. What could he do which would make it possible for women to have the choice to go to work and still do the family things they wanted to do? And he's done pretty much the same things. He's improved access to childcare. He's got enhanced parental leave at the time of the birth of a new baby, and so on. So with our mix of social policies, we can help these choices.
I suppose for us in Malaysia, I mean, we try to basically facilitate participation of women in businesses, in economic activities. I mean, we've established what we call a crowdfunding platform for entrepreneurs to raise funding. And what we found is that women entrepreneurs basically are receiving more successful funding campaigns. I suppose because the perception that women are more meticulous, perhaps they're more careful with money management, and they're more compliant in repayments, of loans or debt. What more can we do to basically facilitate participation of women in economic activities?
Well, I think access to credit is incredibly important, and you're right. The evidence is that women are very good repayers of the loans that they take. The Grameen Rural Bank in Bangladesh found that very early on. They pitched their product to poor rural women. The women were very conscientious in repaying, and maybe years of responsibility managing household budgets. You can't go into debt. You've got to make things balance up. So another thing I think is very important is peer support. I think women in business, women in teaching, women in whatever. Women need to get together, because often a problem shared is a problem halfway to resolution, so people can share experience about what worked for them, what didn't. That kind of voluntary support mechanism can be very, very powerful. Then there's the issue of role modelling. Women seeing other women in prominent positions, in the company, in the government, in the organisation, whatever it is. This is powerful. In New Zealand, we now have our third woman Prime Minister. When I was Prime Minister for 9 long years, people used to say their boy children will say, "Can a boy ever be Prime Minister in this country?" You see, it turned the tables. Now we have a young Prime Minister, a 37-year-old woman. She's actually having a baby in her first year as Prime Minister. People are very excited by this, because they say it shows you can go to the very top and still have a family and have a balanced life. So role modelling is so critical.
Right. And I suppose in doing that, you still need to have the ecosystem to support you, either extended family, your spouses, understanding.
Exactly. Now, in the case of our New Zealand Prime Minister, she has a supportive partner. So he says he's going to be home as the stay-at-home dad for a while. Obviously, they will be a privileged couple. She has an income, he's been a media personality, so they will be able to afford to hire childcare. But we have to think of the place of the ordinary working woman and man in a family. What are the supports for them? And that's where I think we can take a lot of inspiration from the Scandinavian societies, which really tackled those issues going back decades, and where other countries like my own are late followers, but are now following that model. So we give women a genuine choice to combine family and career if that's their wish.
I suppose what would be, how significant are the roles of states and governments and corporates in facilitating? Very
significant. Governments set the overall policy framework. They design the social safety net. They determine how much money will go into supporting the woman who's taking time out from work, where the company doesn't have a policy on that. Companies, of course, have a very important role. Long before we had paid parental leave as a right in law, of course, there were many companies that provided that anyway. But you need, in the end, the law for the companies that couldn't do it. A lot of the SMEs can't do this. They're not big enough for that. So by having a social policy that's nationwide, you pick up the women who aren't in big corporations but still need that support.
Looking at your bio, I mean, you were heading a very critical institution, such as, the UNDP, and clearly the first woman to become the administrator of UNDP, and certainly your job is very challenging. Perhaps you can share with us, some of the challenges or issues that you have faced in trying to pursue the wide-ranging goals, or mandate that the institution have set for itself in terms of bringing global sustainability and being a woman.
Well, firstly, I found I was very well received by UNDP staff. Mm-hmm. They were quite excited to have a woman leader, and I will look back on those 8 years, 2 terms I did at UNDP with huge affection for the organisation and for the people I worked with. I was very conscious that while I had an office in Midtown Manhattan, a safe place, we were sending people out to the most difficult locations in the world, in Somalia, in Mali, in Afghanistan. So in a sense, people putting their lives on the line every day they went to work for UNDP and for the greater good in those societies. So I'm very sort of humbled really to support people doing those jobs. Now at UNDP, we had a very strong ethos, and this went back years before me, that you never have a one-size-fits-all approach to a challenge, because every society is different, thinks about things in different ways. So what we were there to do was to work with people to find the solutions that were appropriate for them. There are many roads to Rome, as the old saying goes. And we could bring a range of options. We could say, well, that's how it was done in Brazil, that's how it was tackled in South Africa, that's how it was done in Malaysia. We could, because we were a global organisation, we had that broad knowledge of what had worked in different contexts. And then people can take that and they can shape it and adapt it and work out something that will work for them. So I liked that way of working. It was never saying, you've got to do this. No. Let's kind of sit and work out what would be the best way of tackling this challenge.
Right. And then in your speaking session this morning, you spoke about the involvement of youth in either policy decisions or providing feedback. And I think I want to refer to, you just had, I think in 2016, UNDP launched a youth global program for sustainable development. How do you see the involvement of youth in shaping the policy for sustainable and equitable development?
Well, in a sense, sustainable development is all about youth, because it's about the future. It's taking the long-term view. So today's youth are the ultimate beneficiaries of that, but they also must be engaged in it and they must contribute to it. Now, when we look globally, youth unemployment is too high in many places. The Arab states which experienced the major uprisings, some of which never have subsided, some end in tears. What was a big factor behind that? Frustrated youth. Often in societies like like Egypt, the educated youth with a qualification were more unemployed than the uneducated youth. So you had youth who'd gone the hard yards, they'd studied, they'd got their degrees, there was nothing for them. So the issues of youth getting education that will be relevant to a place in the society and the workforce, being able to stand on their own feet, support their families, these are huge issues. And also societies being prepared to listen to young people. Most of our societies are more likely to listen to older people than they are to young people. But this is the largest youth demographic our world has ever known. 1.8 million adolescents and youth. We ignore those youth at our peril. So better bring them in, encourage them to vote, encourage them to join, whether it's political parties, civil organisations, but stay engaged with young people, listen to what they're saying, take their energy, their innovation. It all contributes to the greater good. If we push them to the margin, if we don't create opportunity, we pay a price for that.
Right. Okay, so I suppose that's good to hear, because I suppose for Malaysia, the government has an initiative called Transformation National 2050. Essentially, it's a plan to actually put the country in the path of high income. Basically, we want to be one of the countries with strong economic development. We want to ensure that there's citizen well-being and innovation. And the process of this initiative is that the Minister of Youth and Sports sort of engage many young Malaysians to basically get their aspirations and then use these aspirations to develop the plan for 2050. So in essence, I think there are the young voices that are being taken into consideration as we plan out our path, yeah, for 2050. But I suppose, in your views, how do you see Malaysia can progress further in its effort to strive to become a high-income nation, wanting to have sustainability in economic development, wanting to have sustainability in citizen well-being, and at the same time facilitating innovation?
Well, Malaysia will get there, right? I mean, Malaysia has had incredibly fast development. Think back to where it was at the time of independence to today. I first came to this country in 1995. A lot had happened by then, but if I compare 1995, my first visit with today, it's incomparable. So it will get there. I think the key issues will be, firstly, gender equality. I mean, the participation in the workforce has to come up. That will certainly help. But secondly, I think it will be in the strength of institutions. That's a critical thing for high income status, the quality of regulation, the transparency. All of these things are very, very important. But you have a dynamic economy, you have demography still working for you. It's absolutely doable, and I think Malaysians should be very proud of what they've achieved, and they will go the whole way. I know that.
Right. Okay, so thank you for that excellent conclusion, I would think. Okay, perhaps my final question, because I thought I wanted to end it on you stating that Malaysia has hope and will achieve what it wants to achieve by 2050. But my final question with you, tell me, from your personal reflections, why do you strongly advocate and promoting awareness in sustainable development and equitable development?
Well, I see that the major challenge to our ongoing well-being as human beings on this planet is what we are doing to our environment, and also the very large divisions that we're seeing grow within many societies. If we want happiness as human beings, we need the environment to keep on giving the incredible gifts that it gives, the regulation of our climate, our water supply, the quality of our air. And we need that solidarity within societies, which doesn't see a whole lot of people abandoned to a scrap heap. I think widening divisions are very, very corrosive. And where you have them, you have unhappy societies, you have unrest, you can't develop peacefully. Now, in the extreme example, that will boil over and can be very bloody, as we've seen. So my desire always is to have peaceful development, for societies to be able to dialogue, work through their issues. I think representative democracy helps in that. That's my personal opinion. On the environmental side, we can't clear our forests anymore, it's just too critical. But there's global solidarity in that too, because some of the standing forests are in the world's poorest countries. You have people desperate for livelihoods, clearing land. We need more support for more intensive agriculture, more productivity, more support for industrialisation so that the surplus of labour on the land can be absorbed into the towns. There's a lot to do. But I'm always positive because I have seen so many societies in my lifetime transform. Malaysia is one of them. Singapore next door is another. I first went to Thailand over 40 years ago. If I compare Thailand in 1976 with Thailand today, no comparison. So how can the benefits of this accelerated progress spread widely to the world's poorest countries? I think that's our challenge. What's the solidarity, the support we can put in behind that? And it's not just solidarity in the sense of overseas assistance and development banks. It's investment. Shouldn't the world's investors be seeing Africa, 1 billion people now, 2 billion, and not the immensely different future? This is a huge opportunity, and the opportunity to grow through trade and investment is very, very important. And that's what African countries are looking for. I go to many conferences on African development. What the African leaders say, we want trade, we want investment. We don't just want a grant, we want the means to stand on our own feet.
Okay, so on that note, you're certainly an inspiration. Allow me to thank you for being here at Conversation at SC, and it's been a pleasure speaking with you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.